So, my dear friends, let's talk about Roswell, which is literally a very odd looking tank. I mean, I played in Halloween mode before this whole video thing, so now I figure it's fit to talk about it in multiplayer since, hey, this might be a good video for a documentary thing for down the road. I know the tank's gone and we have like so many other tanks to review, but you know what? If this tank is going to be out next year for free, might as well do a review now what it's going to be like if you keep this tank, and is it even worth it playing in multiplayer, or is it one or done? Well, if you go by the people on YouTube or anything about that, there's a lot of people that, how do I say this, really hates the tank. What I mean by that? Well, I summed it up as all as a meme of how people were pissed off about this.
Go ahead and get gone. I'm going to cut your head off.
No refunds! Yeah, a lot of people just were mad of a lot of things with this tank, and we're gonna get right down to it talking about this. But first things first, as we always talk about, let's talk about its armaments. Now, to try to sum up the armaments before saying it, even though it's a heavily armored tank, it's got some very interesting problems with the tank, as you could probably already tell if people have played this sort of tank. One major thing we can talk about real quick is the whole armor of the tank. The whole armor is garbage. It is trash. There is no armor or any gun that could protect you from it. I mean, look at this. It's literally bad. Like, it's 95. So when you angle it, you got like 102. That's not a lot. And you would think like angle armor would be good, but a tier 8 gun can pen through this. A tier 7 gun can pen through this. There's no protection in the whole armor. So you're probably thinking, okay, don't expose your whole armor. But the head armor's got to be amazing, right? Well, yes and no. It depends on how you play this, because obviously this is the way how this armament is all set up. Your viewing range, if you get a good enough crew in it, like I do, and equipments and all that, seeing a decent amount of range, this is labeled as a sniper tank only. I mean, yes, granted, you could probably hold down aggressively, but that's not how this tank works. Why? Well, let's break down the three major weak spots. First and foremost, the blue armor above the head. Now, you're probably wondering yourself, it's like, oh, if you keep it flat here, it's really angled. How can anyone pen that? Which is true. If you're in a flat surface, you can angle it. However, if it's up in the air like this or a tank slightly above you, yeah, that whole armament's right there. Like I'll show you the thing. See that American star? If they could see it clearly above the tank, you could shoot that and pin it, which is not good. So you have to literally keep this tank on the ground as much as possible, because you do not want this thing overlapping. You don't want this thing backed up into a hill. It would expose heavily the weak armor armaments. It's really bad. Like, oh my god, bad. It will get you killed. It will lose your ammo rack very quickly. Now, the other part we have to talk about how weak the head armor is. Now, you're probably thinking, like, well, maybe the commander's hatch is weak enough. We could probably pen that. If you got a very good accurate gun, but I wouldn't recommend it. It's too freaking hard to hit that freaking commander's hatch. Look how flat they are. AP would be impossible to pen the commander's hatch, because it's so freaking hard to pen that. I mean, granted, yes, some people probably could, but at the same time, no. Now, the other thing that this tank suffers heavily too is Hesh rounds. Because I don't know how, but every time I play a tank, it's like it always gets penned by Hesh in the head turret. So be mindful when tanks can pen up to Hesh rounds on your face. Because the strongest part on your cheeks right here is 230 millimeters of armor. If you got a pen that could go more than that, because it's angled, but if you got a pen that could do more than that, it will pen through the cheeks like nothing. So be mindful of that as hold downs. And then the last and final part of how bad the tank is I'll try to highlight it, is this. The turret ring. Now you're probably wondering, well, that's going to be a hard spot to hit, right? Wrong. It is very easy to hit. In fact, if you look at this tank, if you look right below this whole ring circle, it is easily a pennable area, which is ludicrously stupid if you do that. Because if you expose any part of that at all, a tier 8 or a 7 can pen you through that. That's insanely nuts. So, in other words, the best way to use your armor is to only expose where your gun is. No gun depression or nothing on a flat terrain surface, which is insane because of how much the tank is low to the ground and your turret ring exposed like a goddamn mother effer. It's really hard to keep this tank exposed. Like, you have to literally cover up this, like I'll point to you right here. You have to cover up this orange, cover up the whole armor, cover up the freaking two commander's hatches, keep this part flat. But there's also another weak spot that many people don't talk about, but it is a weak spot. And that is this little square box right here. It's only 240, meaning, and it's flat. So meaning if you have APCR, they could do 290. That's your weak spot you could pen because that is a flat terrain surface that pens through that, which kind of sucks, but a lot of people don't know that. But if you pen a good penning arc on it and not shoot it when it's angled or when it's looking right at you and you have nowhere to pen it on the face, yeah, that's a pennable spot. That sucks for anyone who has APCR that could shoot really fast and also pen up to 290. That's nuts. But anyway, back to the topic. So yeah, the armor is ludicrously not good. So, okay, let's keep going forward because we got a lot more to talk about. So, let's talk about its gun, which is, granted, not bad. Extremely not bad. I mean, for a tier 8 destroyer for Americans, this one's not bad at all because even though many people don't like its pen, which we'll get to that in a minute when we show you the pen and personal thing, but I find it okay. Now, firing rate is 8.9, 19, which you have a good crew net. You can get this down ridiculously fast how it fires. It's nuts how a 120 millimeter cannon can fire that fast. And it's just insane. Now, accuracy, well, this we have to talk about because it has two modes. It has a siege mode, I would call it, which is, I wouldn't call it siege mode, I would say transformer mode because this thing can go speed limit, which is slightly more faster, or extremely accurate as hell shots, which is insanely not bad at accuracy shooting. Like, I'm not joking when I say that. But yeah, that's the problem because the reason why that little box on the back of the tank, like saying like that, that's the engine transmitter to change it from a speed thing to a drive thing, and it's nuts how this tank does it. But honestly, we'll get to that in a minute when we get into the battlefield. But my personal opinion, I don't really think like it should have that. I think it actually is fine just being extremely accurate, but that's just my opinion. But let's get back to the thing. So damage is 400. The highest I've done with this is not exactly 400. I've done 370 as an average roll. 370, 360. That's usually my average roll. So penetration. Now this is the part a lot of people had a not a good time with, but I honestly don't see why we're having a problem with it, but I don't think it's bad. So penetration, 232 millimeters at 100 meters, one grid over. Now 5 grids over, 500 meters, is 220. That's not bad. I mean, yeah, it's bad enough for 120 mil, but think about this. You got accuracy and you got 10 less pen. Actually, no, 13 to be exact, less pen. That's not bad compared to most tanks. Most tanks will lose a lot more pen than that. And then it tells you AP, APCR, heat, yada yada, and ammo of 40. So the gun is really not bad in my opinion, but we'll get to that in a minute. Like, I gotta understand the frustration of people not liking the tank and want their money back, but at the same time, the gun is not bad for at least. So, yeah. So it's got an okay turret ring turning thing. So obviously, as you could tell, this is like a lock-in turret. So I'm just going to tell you that, like, since it's new. It doesn't go all the way 360. In fact, it only goes halfway. It only meets where the tracks are. Like, you see the tracks on the tank? It's like it only goes that far at turning its gun because it is a locked turret, because it makes sense because of the box in the back is locked into the turret itself, so it makes sense that it couldn't go turning that far. So yeah, it's one of those lock-in tanks. It's not like something you can look all the way around and see the back part of your tank. No, it's not like that at all. So let's see, the other thing too, we'll get to that in a minute. Like, single range is 1,142, which is modified by yours truly because it has a 9 per crew, and it's okayly decent. Now, the problem is with this tank, it relies heavily on people spotting things for you. It does not do well at like combat by itself as spotting. It does okay spotting okay itself, but it relies on team heavily. So this is a team player tank for anyone like to notice that real quick and stuff. So let's look at the other thing. So its health bar is 1,300, which makes sense. I mean, it doesn't make sense for a lot of people, and I can understand that it's pretty low health. But at the exact same time, after I just tell you all the armaments and stuff, it makes sense that it doesn't have that much health. This tank's not meant to get hit at all. So, like, it's meant to be a hidden tank like a Borsig or something, but it does have some head armor to protect itself, but it's really in the category of the Iron Rain or the Borsig, pretty much, Waffle Wagon is play styles. So, yeah, so you can see the speed. You see the little icon there with a little X symbol. That's because it's the siege mode and stuff. So it goes 35. It goes a little bit faster when you put in speed mode, which honestly doesn't really make a difference. It only goes 5 plus more. And I usually don't talk about this, but let's talk about the commander. This is Steven, or Stevie. Forgive me for American names, but yeah, I have to talk about this because real quick because one, not only that, but he's kind of a cute alien. My girl and I love him to death, but at the same time, he does something that I did not expect when you go on the lows because I thought he was like, oh, maybe commander, good commander looking. I'm not going to waste my time on it, whatever and ever. But no, if you play other than the Roswell tank, you put him in any tank in your garage besides the Roswell that he's assigned to, he does this at the end if you make it at the top three. Yeah, like I didn't expect that. I was gonna keep on going and talk about the tank, ignoring the commander, but I didn't expect him to actually take the tank up in the air in the mothership kind of way and take it away. I didn't know that. I mean, it's awesome. I thought that was pretty cool, but at the same time, what? So I just wanted to say that too, because like that. Also, I wish too that the commander, how do I say this? I wish he had a different voice acting thing. Like, I really wish he had like a unique, different voice in battle because I thought that would be awesome to have. I mean, imagine this. I mean, I've been watching a TV show called Resident Alien. A really funny show. I would recommend watching it. But dude, how much would you pay him if he had this voice line in the game? Just imagine the actual actor from Resident Alien did voice acting in this game.
You little shit.
Good morning, dickhead.
Don't bite. Actually, I do.
Hurtful. Forgive you because you are a sick little boy.
This is some bullshit.
Cook your monkey ass.
Son of a bitch. This is some bull. God damn it.
Would you pay 3,000 gold for that? I mean, I would in a heartbeat. I would love to have a commander that talks like that. Oh man. So anyway, back to the loadout so we could talk about its ammunition. So we already talked about the ammunition costs on this thing. So basically We already talked about everything, but the speed is 1067. So yeah, you could definitely tell it's a sniper because it's really fast projectile for something that's an AP. So it's only 1600, I mean 1060, which is not a bad price for a round. Really, it isn't. Now let's talk about the premium round, which is APCR, which my opinion not really the greatest because oh boy, like don't get me wrong, it's not a bad round. And I do diss sometimes the APCR, but for sniping, it's perfectly fine. It just has a hard time penning angle shots because it's a small projectile that's moving a lot more faster, and angles and ricochets can easily happen on angled target parts, depending on how big the APCR is. So, here's the other problem I have with it. Penetration at 100 meters, 267. I mean 78. Okay, wow. That's almost tier 9 like penetration on a TD easily on a tier 9. Really, really effectively. However, 500 meters, which is 90% of the time you're going to be doing with this tank, 245. Ooh, that's not good. Because you compare this to the AP, which I did like, you get 13 less pen when you're at 500 meters, which is what you want. You don't want to have a hell of a lot of less pen. But here, you lost nearly almost 30 millimeters of pen, which is insane amount of loss of pen there. So if you're going to plan on sniping tier 10s, because this thing does see tier 10s, it's going to really betray you because you only get 245 for sniping. You have to be up close and personal against those tier 10s to make it worth it. And the problem is, there's no armor on this tank, so we'll get to that in a minute. So same damage and yada yada, but I don't do 400 max because I've never seen 400 max pen of damage like that. But the speed is 1240, which is a lot more like 200 and pretty much more faster than this one. Makes sense. And then finally, you get the high explosives, HE, which is not really worth packing, but it's only worth 90 credits. Sorry, APCR is only 1,400. I forgot that for a shell. You already see that, so pretty much that. So high explosives at 100 meters and 500 meters, it's only 60. Again, not really worth it unless you're trying to annoy someone holding down, which this thing only carries not much, only 40 ammo, so why would you want to pack high explosive just to get a little tickle damage on anyone hold down? And then even though the armor damage is a lot more higher, you got to remember you got to penetrate that, so that's not a great thing. So ammo speed is reduced to 980, which is again not great. And then splash radius is basically 2.42, which is not bad, but again, don't bother packing high explosive. Just the AP, APCR. High explosive is meant for light tanks, artillery, or one tank you just want to annoy the hell out of, which is not worth anything if you don't only have 40 rounds. Okay, so after talking about all that, let's get in the game and I'll tell you my opinion of playing this tank and also my personal thing on it. So, Roswell, what can I say about this tank that you already basically know? I mean, honestly, in my personal opinion, I think I like this TD, but I just don't like its survivability. I mean, to me, I have so many TDs in my garage that can outbeat this tank when it comes to it. However, I do have to say though, out of all the American TDs, this one's probably the most accurate one, like out of most of them. And I find that really cool. But again, when I kept playing this tank, I kept dying a lot, which made it harder to review this Roswell tank. And to be fair, it is like one of those tanks that is, well, not designed to be frontline, but it can be if you hold down just right in it. It's kind of like it got the T-29 playstyle. You know what I'm talking about? The one where your whole armor is completely garbage, but your upper plate is okay, as long as you keep the ground flat. which is a huge problem because 90% of the time that's usually flat ground. Now, for the speed and stuff, yeah, some people can argue saying that is useful since I said, like, it's kind of not. But reality with how weak the TD is, why would you want to go to the front lines with it? Like, this is a tank that needs to hold down, needs to use people to aggressively hold back. So that's a huge problem if you charge the front lines with this TD that is basically designed to be a sniper. Also, the fact is, sometimes I've noticed this too when you shoot that gun and penetrate sometimes, it feels like it does more pen than it does. I'm guessing it's because it might be a high velocity round of a tank barrel, like a railgun thing, but it still feels like it could penetrate more than it says, but that's just me in some cases. Now, a lot of people are not going to like this tank, and the reason why I said in the beginning that a lot of people don't like it is one, they charge up to the front lines with it a lot and get slaughtered, and two, when they expose from long range, they don't realize if you're on a slightly angled hill tilting downwards with your tank, you're going to be exposing your weak spots. And that's why you don't really see this many tank on the battlefield because, let's face it, anything that does with anything with sniping in this game is going to be outdated because of the fact that most tanks nowadays fight aggressively too close to one another. And having a sniper, which some maps do work, like I'm going to say Pavaraka, I can't pronounce that Russian word, but like basically some open field maps can actually work. But unfortunately, the reality is most tank players play mid aggressive or close range aggressive. That's usually what it's been like for like almost like 5 years now of playing this game. And I've been playing this game for nearly almost 9 years, so it's a dramatic change. So having a TD that's designed to hold down, you're going to get penned a lot. So regardless of that, it's not like, is it really the great, worst TD out of all of it? Like everybody that says besides some YouTubers, no. I I've seen worse. Believe me, I've seen mega worse. Now, is it the greatest? No. Like the greatest TD would be like you have like all jack of every trait jacked off: speed, firepower, armaments, and all that. That's like a broken TD. But here, it balances it out enough to where it's okay. I mean, granted, yes, after pointing out your weak spots, most people don't know those weak spots unless you engage this tank so many times. And I hope that my video, actually helps you understand how to kill it if you have to face up against it. Because I want people that play the Roswell more challenging than you expect, not trying to kill it to where it's extinct. No, that's where you have to open your mind to different ways of how to play a tank, different ways, because that's the heart of World Tanks in a nutshell. No matter how much your classification of your tank is, sometimes you're going to have to play it what it's not classified to do. And that's World of Tanks for you. There's going to be times where you can't play the Pacific role of a tank thing. So, yeah, I mean, honestly, now that this tank is here forever, I would recommend getting it free a lot of times now. But still, I would recommend, like, you get it for free instead of paying for it, like yours truly did. So, that being said, the battle is about to be wrapped up very shortly. It's a very short battle. I didn't show much of sniping in this game, but again, sometimes you can't really show off the playstyle of the tank that easily. I played this so many times, it just didn't work. So I'll see you guys back at the garage for the final verdict on Roswell. So, final verdict on Roswell, the tank itself. I mean, granted, I played this on Halloween, and I found it terrifying how it could just hit a normal object with high explosives and sent the thing flying in the air, harming damage, and using a blaster, I thought that was pretty cool. However, though, in multiplayer, I can understand some people's reaction saying why this tank was bad and why they want a refund. Was it really that bad, audience? Really? This is the one where a lot of people are saying it's awful, it's trash, put it away. I really don't think so. I don't like I played a lot of tanks. You just see every tank in my garage. I have played a lot of premium tanks in the last 9 years of playing tanks. And it's funny to me how this is the tank everybody's mad about. Now, granted, yes, I could see why the problems. I'm not going to deny them. The whole armor is completely garbage. The head armor is mediocrely. If you know how to pend it, you're screwed. Hesh and heat is going to, not hesh and heat, high explosive and heat would penetrate this tank a lot, making it really hard to play this tank. I can understand the arguments of people. However, the gun works perfectly fine in my opinion. The armaments do work sometimes against AP and APCR. It like I don't find this to be a really bad tank. And honestly, now that we can get it for free next year, since this tank is long gone now, I apologize it's late. It's just I have a hard time doing YouTube videos lately. Um, so yeah, I think this is a good TD if you like sitting in the back. This is not an aggressive tank, although it can be if you have the right team. But however, in reality, it's mostly a hold down sniper tank. It has so many weak spots problem, even the turret ring itself, it's going to need some protection. So, final verdict on the Roswell. I want to say in Halloween, I think it was pretty fun. I mean, the reloading on that UFO launching them in the air thing was too long. I would say like a 7 out of 10 if you played it on Halloween. Now, for keeping it and playing it in multiplayer only, that's going to be hard to say because this thing does see tier 10s. It's got a crap hull armor, but it does have speed to transform into its moving speed. But with how weak the tank is, I doubt you want to go to the front lines really quick. So transforming a speed thing, not really worth it. I know you're going to say in the audience comments, I should say this too before I get blown up with messages. Yes, you could use the speed to get away, but again, it doesn't really go like, light tank speed or ludicrous speed like Spaceballs. No, it just goes like 5 plus more. So it's not really a big game changer, but it's big enough. So I like the armament's okay, gun was okay. I don't like the lock-in turret system, but then again, they had to balance it with something, I guess, for light tank players. So I would have to give it probably I would give it like a 6.5 out of 10. It's fair. The gun is useful. The head armor can be block some shells. It can actually do okay. It's just you just gotta remember not to go aggressive with it and to hold down that turret ring right here, to hold that down and not let them see that because that's a dependable area for some tanks. So, and that's a problem because it locks in all of your tank, and then you gotta use only your zero gun depression to do it, which kind of sucks. So I get where people is getting mad at. I get it, understand it, but I don't think it's the awful or demanding refunds for this tank because I don't think it was bad. Now, yes, paying for the tank sucks, but now you can get it free next year. Which probably, if you watch this video either that year, at least you'll know what it's capable of in multiplayer for that, and go see the Halloween video if you want to see it how it reacts in Halloween mode. But that's all I gotta say, and thank you so much for watching, everybody, and take care, and I will see you, comrades, on the next battlefield.